Hi, and welcome to PC Perspective Podcast. Tonight is episode 178, and we're recording on the 9th of November, 2011. If you'd like to get a hold of us, you can try multiple ways. You can give us a call at 1-888-38-PC-PER, or you can email at us at podcast@pcper.com. You can find these episodes at www.pcper.com/podcast. Or you can follow Ryan or PC Perspective at twitter.com/Ryan Shrout or twitter.com/PCPer. And with that, I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
And I'm Al Malventano.
If you hadn't
And
noticed
I've
by
got more
now,
stubble
Ryan
than Al
Shrout.
does.
Say that again, Jeremy.
And I've got more stubble than Al does.
Yep.
That's, yeah, and all of you has far more stubble than myself. Do you know I shaved 2 days ago?
How do you pull
No?
that off?
No.
Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Yeah, I don't know what. I don't go through razors very much. But, if you haven't noticed, Ryan Shrout is not here this evening. He is out either at a basketball game or at some legal firm trying to deny he did something to somebody else, which is kind of Ryan's MO. So how's everyone doing this evening? Alan, have you got a full stomach?
No, not yet. I'm still eating my pancake.
Jeremy, do you have good bottles of scotch handy?
No, I'm not allowed to touch it until I win the bar bet in December.
Well, then
But it
how
is-
are you going to make it through this entire podcast? Both of you. I mean, seriously. Alan
That
is
would be
just gonna
Imperial
shrink
Russian Stout.
for our eyes, and Jeremy will have a nervous breakdown due to low alcohol content.
I'm pretty sure I can smell it from where I'm sitting.
Well, snart huffing. Snart huffing, anyway. For the introductory article tonight, it seems that our friend Ryan Shrout, who is not here this evening, reviewed the EVGA GeForce GTX 560 Ti to win. And that small child that you just saw whip in behind us was not authorized by his mother, and I'm sure out. He will not be hearing about it later.
Oh, the poor
Jeremy,
kid
do you
was
have a chance
waiting.
to listen to this or read the article?
Oh, this 11.5-inch dual GPU monster?
Yes.
It's, EVGA is doing some interesting things with GPUs. And, I mean, the 560 Titanium sort of came in. We sort of liked it, we sort of didn't. What we were going to see, but it's matured into something really nice. So GTX 560 Ti to win a 2 GB dual GPU graphics card, and that's 1 GB of RAM per GPU, is really an impressive piece of technology. You've got 3 nice fans, which are actually help it to run a little bit cooler than its direct competitor, which of course would be 2 GTX 560 Ti's. Overall, Ryan, he was really impressed with this thing. It doesn't really sport an overclock out of the box. You've got an 850 megahertz core, which is a little bit more than the 822 reference. Memory speed's untouched at 4.008 effective. And the one really nice thing about it is that unlike some NVIDIA cards, this actually sports 3 dual-link DVI connections and a single mini HDMI, which you can all use at the same time. One of the complaints that we've had for Eyefinity versus the NVIDIA products is that you need 2 cards to be able to run multiple monitors. This thing is quite happy to send to 4. It's, as far as I know, pretty much the first one that will do it apart from the 590. Which costs
This is
just
it is in essence 2 cards though, right? As far as like basically what's
single
in there,
PCB
right?
and 2 GPUs.
Yeah.
Which are sharing the 2 gigs of RAM. So and again, 590 is sort of the same idea. So of course you are able to run multiple displays on a single card, but a lot of the times, I'll argue against NVIDIA solutions unless you're going SLI. if you are actually buying a high-end video card, there's no point playing it on, a 1650 monitor. You want to get multiple monitors. It just makes a lot of sense if you're going to spend that much money on a video card. And in this case, you are going to spend that much money on a video card because it's just a hair over $500. Still cheaper than if you're going to buy two 560 Ti's. In fact, it's about $40 difference if you were to go with an SLI rig as opposed to just picking this up with the one PCB. On the plus side, I mean, hey, that means on 99% of the motherboards out there, you're not going to be blocking a PCI Express 1.0 or 4.0 slot. I mean, you try and do that on a double wide GPU, and you put two of them in there, you're going to lose at least a slot. In this case, you've actually saved the space. You draw slightly less power, and if you want to go nuts, you could put two of them in there and go quad. Performance-wise, it sits pretty much exactly where you're looking at, matching up with the SLI performance of two 560 Ti's, and, pretty much smashing a 580 to pieces, which we would expect, and, trumping the 6970 altogether. Plus, as I'd mentioned, you've got the benefit that you can already be running multiple monitors on it, which is sort of the one thing that AMD has as a claim to fame, apart from fairly decent performance and a little bit more RAM, because when you do start to hit the higher resolutions, the amount of available RAM does seem to affect things. So when you are limiting this to 1 gigabyte of 1 gigabyte of RAM per GPU, you may start to notice some issues when you are doing 330-inch Dells. Unfortunately, on the other thing is that Battlefield 3, a very popular game, which I'd love to be playing, except Punkbuster and my Realtek audio seem to be fighting it out, so it just goes every time I play it. It doesn't like multiple GPUs. And Ryan saw that, performance-wise, as far as the charts show, the 560 Ti to win is significantly better. Problem is, it doesn't look better. He's been doing a little bit of research on stuttering. You may have seen our previous articles on that, as well as, maybe mention that a little bit on the Rage review. So he describes it as technically faster, but nowhere near as enjoyable as on a single GPU solution. So if you are thinking about upgrading specifically for that reason, you really might want to pay attention to that, wait for a while to see if the drivers catch up, or if this is just something that the Frostbite 2 engine has a problem with. I wouldn't know. As I say, my onboard codec is still fighting with the bloody Punkbuster.
Do you have two HD 6950s, or you still just have one?
Still have the one because I'm still stuck with a single display. No point in upgrading to a double GPU setup if I don't pick up some extra room so that I can then figure out how to fit the extra monitors so that I can then enjoy what you're enjoying.
Well, it's kind of interesting because with BF3 especially, I can't play in Eyefinity. It's just too slow, too choppy.
Oh,
so
really?
I have to limit myself at all the maximum levels at one monitor and one resolution, and that's the only way you can do it. I mean, this really is it's a next generation title, and they did a pretty good job in aiming at the PC. Because, my dual 6950s that are flashed to 6970s just can't push it on three monitors at the levels they're wanting. So, going back to this actual article that we're talking about, the 1 gigabyte frame buffer that the two GPUs have, and it's not shared, but when you start doing SLI, it needs to replicate all the textures and a lot of the information on each one of the frame buffers. And so even though it's a 2 gigabyte card, effectively in SLI, it's 1 gig of memory. So when you start getting into the next generation titles, Battlefield 3, I'm kind of curious what Skyrim is going to do because they've done some serious optimizations for the PC. We're going to find that out in about 25 hours and 30 minutes or so. And
Except it's still DX9, isn't it?
It's hard to say. I don't know. I think they actually put DX11 stuff in there. And even though it does have consolitis in ways, it's a huge jump up from Oblivion. So it's going to be interesting to see. But anyhow, yeah, I'd read over Ryan's article about this. It seems like an interesting product. It's $519. In most current titles, it's above in performance of the GTX 580, which usually retails around 490 or so. So it's a nice investment for a lot of current and older things. But again, until we see some more optimizations in SLI with these newer titles, we may not see the performance boost in some of these newer things. And again, the 1 gig of memory is it's kind of a bummer because even the GTX 580 by itself has 1.5 gigs, a HD 6970 has 2 gigs. You're giving up a lot, and especially as they're trying to get more towards greater realism, more interesting scenes. That memory is going to turn to be a lot more important. Any closing arguments about this particular product, Jeremy?
No, I think you've pretty much nailed it on the head, which is that, hey, it's a brilliant product, but you do suffer from some memory limitations. On the plus side, it sucks down less power than if you're going to set up an SLI rig, and it does produce slightly less heat. Kind of nice. It's compact, but overall, it's going to suffer the same things that we complained about when the 560 Ti first came out, which is if you're really going to try and push this with a next-gen title and a high-resolution monitor or monitors, you're going to feel that memory lack.
And yes, you shall. So I imagine that Ryan and Ken are going to be busy doing Skyrim one day, 2 hours, 30 minutes, whatever. But until that time, we need to talk about more hardware. Now, Alan, had you read anything about the SilverStone Strider Gold 1200 watt power supply that our good friend Lee had posted up?
Hey, enough to notice that it was a flippin' beast of a power supply.
Well then,
yeah.
I guess I should probably take over from that then.
Well, it is.
Anyway, I quickly read this over when before the podcast when I found out that Jeremy would be looking down at his lap almost ad nauseum throughout this entire podcast, and I'm not entirely sure why. Ooh, beverages. It's a nice frog on your glass, if you know what I mean. But anyway, Lee was able to get a hold of the SilverStone Strider Gold 1200 watt power supply. This thing was kind of a beast. It was a 90 plus gold rated or 80 plus gold rated, which means it's pretty high end in terms of its efficiency. It has enough stinking wires and cables off of it to handle 4 dual 8-pin PCI Express connectors if so needed.
And
so
dual EPS.
Pardon?
Dual EPS, so it'll support 2 CPU boards. Very important when the SR3 comes out.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, this thing is an absolute beast. And SilverStone does a pretty good record in terms of power supplies. And Lee did his usual good testing on this, and it lived up to expectations. It was not extremely good, but it was very good. And it performed at the levels that SilverStone had promised that it would be at. It has plenty of modular options in terms of cabling. And so anybody who wants a high-end machine that's got an extreme amount of video cards and processors and whatever, this thing is probably going to do more than good enough for what you need it to do. He said
It does
that
90 amps on the 12-volt rail.
yeah, 90
90.
amps.
Yeah.
What can you weld
You
with
can-
90 amps?
Yeah, you can
I mean,
arc
seriously.
weld with 90 amps. You should make sure all the connectors are connected before you fire this thing up, because yeah, it's just going to weld something if they're not totally connected. It's just crazy.
Yeah. So it's, overall it's a very good power supply. It's around $250. So it is not for those penny pinchers out there, But if you want to build an extreme machine, this is a pretty solid foundation for what you want to do it with. So Lee gave it high regards. I believe it received the Editor's Choice Award from pcper, which is not all that common. I mean, Allyn doesn't give it out. Jeremy certainly
No,
doesn't give it out.
I give it out
It got the silver.
occasionally. I've done
Oh,
it
the
twice.
silver.
Oh, it only got
Scroll up
silver.
just a little bit. 3-year warranty. That was
Yeah, he
the
didn't like
major
3-year
problem.
warranty. He wanted 5. And the best part about that picture that's right there, if you scroll up, keep scrolling, Burke.
It's
Stop.
the other up.
Caution. Hazardous area. That's a hazardous area to be around in your computer. So don't stay around there when it's on and plugged in. Just stop it.
And don't let your water
whatever-
cooling drip into it either.
No.
No,
That's
no.
happened. That's happened
You're
to
going to
me.
arc
I'm just
weld
saying.
yourself into next week. So
Yeah.
that's a bad thing. So,
Yeah, if you're going to do like Kyle did and set the Mars 2 GTX 580s and Quad SLI, you will need this arc welder. I mean PSU.
we'd like to take this time and pause for our first advertisement break, and we would like to go to that right now. Pause. Pause. Thank you for our advertisers for advertising with us. It's greatly appreciated. Helps us to keep content flowing the consumer's way. And next, we would like to talk about the Puget Systems Serenity Core i5 HTPC. It's a new computer that's coming out from Puget Sound, and it is not a high-end machine, but it is aimed at the HTPC market. Allyn, have you read any of this, or am I just wasting my breath?
I read some of it earlier. You're not wasting your
I
breath.
read some things. Well,
You
I guess
did?
I can go into this because Puget Sound, I mean, they make some nice machines. They're kind of one of those
Boutique.
boutique, exactly the word I was looking for. PC manufacturer. I mean, they have low volume, but they make good products and they have really good support. They base this on an Antec HTPC chassis, and they did a lot of nice extra things to make it seriously as cool and as quiet as possible. They added in a lot of anti-soundproof batting internally to the case, so the external case looks nice. It's got an Asus Blu-ray burner DVD. It's got multiple fans running at slower speeds, so you will not hear it. I believe that Ryan did put a sound tester really close to it, and after having it run at full power after about an hour where everything was nicely heated up, it was still only registering about 38 decibels, which is really, really quiet. It's sub-whisper type quiet. There's a couple of interesting things about this in that they do use an i5 2500K processor, so it's got plenty of muscle for the HTPC duties that you got. They've got 2 drives in there. One is an Intel 320 SSD, which serves as the operating system drive and whatever kind of extra programs you have. And then it also includes a 1.5 terabyte Western Digital green drive, which is a slower running, very quiet. And then they furthermore pack that 1.5 terabyte drive into its own special case with anti-vibration and sound dampening products. And they've done it as well so that it doesn't overheat with all this extra packing around it. So you've got an incredibly quiet case, incredibly quiet computer, and when the hard drive's running as fast as it can, you're not going to hear anything on the outside. I mean, they just couldn't make it get loud no matter what they did. Now, of course, the problems here is that they're still using the integrated Intel graphics. It doesn't have any really outstanding issues. It's just not the best out there in terms of doing your video, any kind of 3D gaming. Yes, you can do Angry Birds with it on your big screen TV, but if you're expecting to do Battlefield 2, much less Battlefield 3, you're going to be out of luck. Anything
Yep.
else you guys really kind of have gleamed from
Well, there's
this?
one thing I really noticed about this. Uh, it seems that Puget Systems pretty much has declared the TV dead. This is an HTPC. It does not have a cable capture card in it. It doesn't ship with one, nor is there one integrated. And that actually says a lot, about the consumer that's going to spend $1,400 on an HTPC. They're getting their content over the web. They don't even care that there's no cable card in there, and I have a feeling that they're probably right about that.
You know,
Which,
even along those lines, on top of that, there's if you think about it, people are starting to shift over to things like the HD Home Run. You guys heard of that thing? It's basically a digital cable QAM tuner box that basically it just switches it over to Ethernet. So if you have so you would have this sitting as your front end at your media center, and then somewhere where your cable is coming into your house and right next to your cable modem, you would just have a HD Home Run and then connected right into the router itself, and then it just acts as like a media sharing device, like a streaming media sharing device, and other things can hook into it and can change channels and stuff like that.
oh,
Um,
okay.
so the need to put it all on a card isn't like that much of a big deal anymore, because the higher end versions of the HD Home Run, it can actually use cable card too. Like I think it's like a 4 tuner version that has cable card slot on it or something like that.
Decent.
It's pretty good stuff. And it goes out over like gigabit Ethernet, and it can handle like 4 simultaneous HD streams going out over Ether to whatever you want to play it back on. And I think it's just plugged straight into like Windows Media Center and a couple of other, there's open source various things to pull the streams off of it and get it to change channels and whatnot. But so with things like that, that leaves all you really need is a really decent video playback thing, which this is really dang good. I mean, like Josh said, aside from don't plan on playing any kind of taxing games on this, obviously, but i5's integrated GPU is more than enough for even 1080p at 60 frames per second streams. It can handle it just fine. Um, and especially with what they did, where there's not a single fan in that case that's under 120 millimeters, right? The one out the back is 120. The power supply one, where is the power supply in this thing? Like I couldn't even see wherever it is. I'd imagine it has a pretty dang slow spinning fan as well. Oh yeah, there it is.
I think
It's
it's
like
a
120
Seasonic
millimeter fan.
Silent.
Oh yeah, which it has a fan, but it's like really slow. Seasonics are really slow RPM fans. They're really good, self-regulating down to the quietest possible. And then the fan on the CPU, which I thought the Intel heatsink was dang quiet as it is. Like the storage test bed that we use, it's the same exact CPU with the GPU integrated, and I have yet to even hear that fan spin. And it's an open test bed where the motherboard's just sitting right on the table.
What's that, Alan?
Um,
What? What? What'd you say?
what?
I can't hear you over the fan noise. What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So they took and didn't even go with that, stock Intel fan. They threw what looks like a 140 or 160 millimeter fan on that. So that's just, yeah, everything in there is
It's
just really nice.
overkill.
No, it's good. It's going to be dead silent, which is what you want for a like home theater PC kind of deal. If you're gonna spend this much on it, you're probably gonna be one of those people that has a room dedicated to this, right? Or you're gonna have a living room with a really nice sound system and something that's sort of off the beaten path of the house and a little bit out of the way to where it is quiet, right? Um,
Can
and
you turn down the
this is just
5.1
perfect
sound?
for
I can't hear my PC.
that. Yeah. No,
So
it's good
anyway,
stuff.
the price of this monstrosity, I believe, is what, 1,600
Around
for it?
$1,400.
No, 1,400. And I think that Brian and Ken kind of went through Newegg and built one up, and it was about $1,200 for the entire product. And when you started adding in the sound batting and the extras like the fans, then it started climbing a lot closer to the retail price of these. Now, what you don't get for building it yourself, It sells for 1,800,
Oh,
but
okay.
still,
Ryan's estimate was 1,400 then. Sorry, I'm reading that backwards.
yeah. And so what you get with that is the 3-year warranty, I believe that Puget offers, and plus all the extra, anti-sound measures, and a pretty decently overall spec'd out and designed system. So there's some peace of mind there. There's a few extra engineering extras, and yeah, having a warranty in case something goes really far south, which Allyn is always hoping for things to go far south. You'll be covered for at least 3 years after you buy it. So, Ryan gave it high marks. He was impressed by the overall product, all the offerings of it, and the extras. So, if you're looking for an HTPC machine that you don't have to worry about, that you don't have to build yourself, that you don't have to spec out and support for yourself, then this is, it's a pretty nice product for what you get.
And it's probably one
Now,
of the first I've seen of an integrated or just all-in-one thing come from somebody with an Intel solid-state drive in it, which is pretty good.
yeah, that was kind of an interesting part is that they still had the Intel 320 in there instead of just keeping with one, even 1.5 terabyte or 2 terabyte drive as your media drive as well as boot and OS. So that's kind of nice. You're going to have nice snappy performance.
Yep.
Believe you me, Allyn likes snappy. Yeah. Another fellow who sometimes writes for PC Perspective. I totally blank out his name because he thinks that he's a Canadian, but he's really not.
You
I
mean
believe
Tim?
it's Tim. Tim the Enchanter. He received the Samsung Infuse 4G. Allyn, do you know anything about the Samsung Infuse 4G? Since you're kind of a mobile guy, you like to do things mobily. Whenever we're together, you never talk to me because you're always on your phone. What can you tell me about this?
Well, they just got it in, and I haven't seen one myself. But yeah, it's just this new Samsung model. Let's see, what is it?
Well, it's got a single core processor, 1.2 gigahertz. It's 4G. He hasn't gotten into it big time yet.
Yeah, big old
But
screen
he's
on it though,
hoping-
4.5 inch screen, 480 by 800. That's not bad.
No, not
Not,
bad.
not
And he,
bad at
he
all.
says that it's fairly responsive, even though it is single core. But uh, when you consider the amount of changes that Android has gone through, I believe it's Android 2.2, so it's not the absolute very latest, but it's still good enough. And it comes with, look at the size of that package. Look at all the stuff you get. Burke is shaking that package around. And yeah, it's
No, it
it's
looks like, is that like a international charger too they threw in there? What is that? It looks like
You're
it.
gonna have to ask Burke to go up and check it out. Up. Oh, there you go.
There's
No, it does not look international.
No, it's just a USB
No.
to AC.
Yeah. Oh well. Here's hoping.
Well,
Too
it's
bad.
it's not a Tegra 3 unit. It's not one of those new Exos that's 1.4 gigahertz dual core that one of those guys is offering. I don't pay nearly as much attention to mobile as I should because that is really the growth area of computing here in the next 5 years. So,
That the closest Josh comes to a cell phone is the BlackBerry that Ryan lets him borrow every CES.
yeah, unfortunately this is about the most mobile computing I have is that Sony camera you traded me for the motherboard.
Yep.
It's sad. I would pull up another, mobile thing. Oh, here it is. This is great. This is like one of the last MP3 players that I ever bought. It was from Mushkin. It was essentially a memory stick with the USB drive there, and it's got some headphones coming off of it.
Oh, wow.
It was a whopping 256 megs of memory.
And probably $256 at the time too.
Yeah, it was a little expensive. But anyway, I guess it's time to head on to our next topic. And oddly enough, it is about mobile. So NVIDIA announced the Tegra 3, which is their next iteration of their latest mobile processor. Now, a few years back, NVIDIA decided to head into the central processing unit, and they figured that while graphics are great and there still will be a market for it, if they really wanted to grow the company, they needed to get into more general processing units. So they signed an agreement with ARM, and they licensed out the A9. Well, I believe at the first product was an A7 product. It was first found. It was the original Tegra, and it was first found in the Microsoft Zune, or was it Zuni? I can't remember how they actually pronounce that damn thing. Zuni? Zune?
What? Zune.
Zune. Fine. Anyway, that was their first real win. It did okay, except Microsoft closed down the entire Zune thing. Then they came out last year around CES with the Tegra 2. It was a dual-core A9 based ARM processor. It had GeForce graphics. It was they considered it the 500 series, even though it was still a non-unified part. It had separate vertex shaders and pixel shaders in it, but it still was able to do, I believe, up to DX10 type rendering. And now they've come out with the Tegra 3. Well, this is AKA Kal-El, going with the superhero theme. It is a quad-core A9 based processor, and in fact, it is a 5-core product because it has a lower clocked and more power efficient A9 core that it runs in lower power situations to further decrease power consumption. They've also improved upon the GPU in terms of while the instructions per clock is around the same, it's more efficient, and they've doubled the amount of pixel shaders. So a lot of the applications which are more pixel shader bound are going to show a significant amount of improvement with this product. It's still a 40 nanometer product, but NVIDIA has gone through design and really has effectively improved power gating, core gating, and all these other things in there to make it more efficient. So in most applications, it is going to use less power than even the Tegra 2 of just 10 months ago. And they do this through a variety of measures. One, if it's something that does not require a lot of power, it uses this low power 5th core that runs at a max of 500 megahertz, and it does the applications it need to. And it also has, kind of the media accelerator involved. So a lot of H.264 content is accelerated without really hitting the processor cores. And they have firmware built into this processor that once it exceeds the level of performance for that single core that's clocked much lower than the others, then it transfers that to the other quad core, and each one of these can be power gated as well. So if it only needs one core running at 1.2 gigahertz, it'll only use that. Otherwise, if it requires more cores or can really have better performance overall by using more cores, it's going to turn those others on, and it's going to run max of 1.2 gigahertz. Now, because there are 4 cores in there, and the way they have everything gated, it's either going to finish things really, really fast and turn off the cores, or it's going to have 1 or 2 cores running that application, and it's still going to use less power than the older Tegra 2. And a lot of that is just design, familiarity with the process technology. So it's a big jump for NVIDIA, and they already have their first big customer, and that's Asus. They're having the Transformer Prime get the lawsuit going, or as Scott from Tech Report says, if you get their Transformer Prime pads with a secondary external graphics, then you can call it Transformer Optimus
Optimus
Prime,
Prime.
and therefore the movie industry is going to come down on these companies like a ton of
Yeah,
brick.
if you try and play a Michael Bay movie on one of those devices, it will explode. Literally.
It probably will, and it should because you're watching a Michael Bay film. But anyhow, the Transformer Prime looks to be a really nice tablet. I mean, they've really streamlined the design. It's got a great look to it. Everything that I've seen so far, it's got this Cal processor in it. It's got plenty of memory. It's going to be pushing the industry forward, and that's something that Asus has been a little behind the ball in with tablets. They made some big strides with the original Transformer, but I think with this one, they're going to be getting a lot more business than they have previously, and this is considering that the original Transformer, it continually was just sold out across the world, no matter where you looked, and they're opening up another can of worms in terms of production with this product because it's going to be something else. Jeremy, any ideas since you are just a mobile platform guru?
Hey, this is something that's actually attractive to me. I like the idea that I'm not stuck with just a tablet because I really don't like trying to type on a capacitive screen. It just drives me insane. So in this case, you've got the portability and you've got the dock. You've got the same exact thing that we loved with the original Transformer, except now you're looking at the second generation of it because a lot of the negative stuff that I saw about the original Transformer was just how persnickety that dock was. You didn't do things exactly right when you connected them, and it just became very, very frustrating to get the two of them to work properly together. So you've got another go at it, and you've got a much more powerful processor sitting inside of it. It's an attractive form factor, really.
Did you notice the camera specs? 8 megapixel f2.4. That looks awfully a lot like an iPhone 4S camera,
Oh, not bad.
which would be pretty darn good if it's the same sensor, which I would imagine it is. Just
They
throwing
all
that out
deal
there.
with the same kind of guys that give them the silicon
Yeah.
chips.
Yeah.
Yep. Between that and also the little extra tidbit there is I don't know that Android would necessarily use all those cores that often, but I tell you what, Windows 8 probably will.
Kind of built for Windows 8, wasn't it, this little thing?
I'm thinking so. I'm thinking so. It's a little early for 4 cores on Android. You just don't have the capability to run. Ryan was saying this actually just the other 1 or 2 podcasts back where he was trying out a tablet, or actually it was on This Week in Computer Hardware. He's trying out some other brand tablet, and he was trying to just shift over to not use any kind of Windows or Mac anything, and just switch to Android and just do what he needed to do, and he just couldn't. Like, it just there wasn't enough there for him to be able to just accomplish everything he needed to accomplish. So there's a little bit of ways to come right before Android's going to be using all those cores, but I think it'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, Google is a rather aggressive company. Even though they're not out there to do evil, it still doesn't mean they can't be aggressive. And certainly in the ARM sector, having a competitor like NVIDIA, who really, when they jumped into graphics, I mean, they love them or hate them, they kind of revolutionized and really pushed the industry more than people were really willing to accept. I mean, 3DFX was a victim of their aggressiveness. I mean, they just couldn't keep up. They didn't have the company discipline to be able to keep up with NVIDIA. And I think that TI, OMAP, Qualcomm, they're just gonna. I mean, they're gonna have to step up their game a lot because NVIDIA is very aggressive. Now, the one thing that is obviously holding NVIDIA back is going to be the process technology. The Scala is going to be 40 nanometer, and they want to get to 28 nanometer as soon as they can, but TSMC is just still not quite prepared to do that in the kind of numbers and wafer starts that these mobile processors are going to require. Certainly, they'll be able to support graphics at 28 nanometer at the beginning of this year, but once you start getting into these more general purpose much higher volume products, it's going to be a big jump. So um, it's going to be interesting to see where NVIDIA is going to be in a year from now, because they will have products that will utilize this next generation process node, and where their competitors are going to be, because we've already seen the competitors' um, roadmaps. I cannot remember the stinking name of that product. It's going to be like 1.6, 1.8 gigahertz in a dual core. It's Crate. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Krait?
the
Crate.
Dragon.
Yeah. And so, I think that the entire industry is kind of stepping up their game, and we're going to see that as consumers, as a lot better products coming our way a lot faster, which is kind of a double-bladed sword, because yeah, we just bought this wonderful new piece of technology. In 3 months, it's so obsolete, it's not even funny.
Oh, come on, the best jokes are the old ones, Josh, and we've been laughing about that sort of thing for a long time now.
Yeah, I mean, just look at me. So anyway, any other closing thoughts on Tegra 3 or Transformer Prime?
Nope.
Well, you're not very much fun. Well,
Sorry.
that leads us on to our next topic. Apparently, Maingear sent Ryan a rather massive water cooler. 180 millimeters, 180. The
Is
thing's
that what it is?
giant. Epic.
It's
This is sort of like next iteration of that Corsair, like the H60 or whatnot, just bigger,
well,
cooler.
if you scroll down to the second picture, or sorry, is it the second picture or the third picture? Second picture has the H50 beside it. Scroll down one more, Burke.
Aha.
Scrolling, maybe.
And we're
Scrolling. Scrolling down.
Oh,
Scrolling
there you
down.
go.
But,
Yeah,
uh,
that little tiny fan off to the right. That's an H50.
well then,
You know what? The one thing I have, the
That's pretty
question
big.
I have about these: how long do they last? Is this a 5-year product? Is it a 10-year product? What? Because eventually the fluid in there is going to start breaking down. It just is going to happen. Even though these are, totally sealed, it's got some special kind of mix in there. Uh, a lot of their, the metals and the tubing are, designed to not decompose a lot of these liquids and materials.
I don't think
How
they're
long is it
using
gonna last?
anything. I don't think they're using anything glycol based. Glycol being like antifreeze type stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're putting that in these. If they did, then that stuff when it breaks down, which takes it quite a while on a water cooling system on a PC actually, because I mean that stuff can live in your car radiator and engine that runs way hotter. And it's rated for like easily half a year there. So this stuff can go a few years. I mean, I've had the same glycol-based stuff in my water cooling rig for pushing over a year easy, and with, and nothing wrong with it. Drain it out to change out a part or something, and just put the
Yeah,
same
but you
stuff
do
back in.
maintenance on it, right?
Well, sure,
You do
but
drain
I
it
put the
out
same stuff
occasionally.
back in. Yeah, but I never change it
Okay.
out. Like I never change it to something else. And I wouldn't worry too much about that. And I don't even think they're using glycol based in this. Again, it's probably just something else. It doesn't need to be. You're not so worried about anti-corrosive for this because it's completely sealed loop. It's not even meant to be maintained. It's not meant to be cracked open. I don't know if they're doing this or not, but I mean, if they needed to, they could just inert any of the. They could just nitrogen inert the rest of it that's in there, and you're not going to worry about anything breaking down. And I don't think they're using dissimilar metals, so you don't have to worry about galvanic corrosion either. They're probably just all aluminum, right? The pump's probably aluminum. Um, I'm not sure
Because
if
I
they're.
remember some years back when Corsair had the copper fins in there, and they would just corrode so quickly it became useless.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have it's when you have copper and aluminum, or you're just mix and matching back and forth. That's when you end up with the crazy issues with galvanic corrosion. Um, so they're either just going with probably copper for the fins and the radiator, maybe, or like some kind of copper coating on the internals of them, and then the water block's probably copper, or they probably just want all aluminum. Who knows? Whatever it is, they're pretty much any water cooling setup these days is they're either using some kind of glycol coolant or they're just making sure all the metals are the same, and then they can sort of back off on that and just go with
Well,
some.
nickel's pretty non-reactive, isn't it?
True, but it still counts as a dissimilar metal. Like it has a different ionic value compared to other metals. So the issue is having two dissimilar metals in the loop. That's where the
Gotcha.
problem comes in. Yeah.
Because I'm thinking like, copper fins coated with nickel might do that, but again, well, you're talking about the different ionic
Yeah.
properties and
Yeah,
could
the
be
whole key to it, is just have everything all the same type of metal, and then you're golden. You don't have to worry about ions jumping from one metal to the other and whatnot.
outstanding. Well,
And
this is a huge, huge radiator. Jeremy, do you have something else to say about it?
well, exactly. It is a huge, huge, huge piece of equipment, and they try and make it as a selling point to say in part of their PR that most air coolers are significantly heavier than what Intel or AMD is specifying as you should be putting on, as in most of them weigh over a kilogram now. So they're claiming that one of the benefits of this is that since you bolt it directly to the case, you won't have to worry about stressing the motherboard and the CPU by putting a lot of extra weight on it. You will be adding God knows how many pounds to your system weight, but hey, on the other hand, at least there's only a couple of grams sitting on your CPU now.
Very true. And
Yeah.
now to our next topic. Apparently, Ryan received in the motherload of memory from Corsair. Yes, he has 64 gigabytes of DDR3 memory for Sandy Bridge E testing. Now, I remember not that long ago in elephant years, or maybe Galapagos turtles years, but namely about 14 years ago, I got my first stick of 64 megabytes of memory. And in fact, I believe that I still have it here. Yes,
Look
64
at
megs
that.
of SD
Ooh.
RAM.
It's like double tall
Double
DIMM.
tall, PC 100. This stuff was the bomb. In fact, this might be just PC 66. I think, in fact, it is PC 66, not PC 100.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
an order of magnitude
you couldn't push
above
that
this
much RAM at
that Ryan
100.
got in the mail. I mean, it's just absolutely disgusting. If our good friend could show the picture of that, it would be fantastic because that is a lot of memory. He's going to be testing it to his heart's content, and I hate him for it. Well, actually, I don't hate him because memory testing it's kind of annoying to do.
That's more RAM than you could buy in a solid state drive 2 years ago. Just saying.
Yeah. I mean, you could partition that in half and have a really nice RAM disk and still have
Yeah.
plenty of to jack with. It's kind of strange and disgusting how that has gone so quickly. Because, yeah, just not that many years ago, 64 megs. And now we're at 64 gigs.
Quad channel
It's-
is a little scary, isn't it?
It kind of is. But it's fun. And you'll have fun with it, I'm sure. See, it came in a big box. That's a lot of vengeance there. So the way he's testing it, though, is one Sandy Bridge is going to have with, 32 gigs of memory on it. Which, considering that I am running 8 gigs in my personal machine, and I have no issues with memory space, that's just so majorly overkill. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like 170 tabs of Lemon Party or Tube 8.
Yeah.
You're just going that far out and not even having a problem with it.
And just to think of, just a couple of years ago, we were arguing about putting 2 gigs, let alone 4 gigs, into a system because, well, you didn't need it and it'd slow it down because it's so much more addressable space that the CPU has to deal with. And now that argument's kind of moot, isn't it?
Pretty much. But anyway, moving on from memory. This evening I posted up a new article. It is a review of 3 Asus boards, all based on the latest 900 series processor from AMD. And now, unfortunately, I did not actually have a Bulldozer CPU to test these with because AMD apparently didn't produce all that many, or they're just not selling good, or I don't know what the problem is because you cannot get an FX 8150 anywhere in retail unless you've got a lot of money and are willing to troll eBay and maybe rip somebody off. Who knows? But anyway, I was able to test these 3 cards with a Phenom 2 X6, which unfortunately is about as fast as the latest Bulldozer processors. And we went through the AMD 970, 990X, and 990FX products. The first one is the M5A 97 Evo, which is kind of the enthusiast branded product from Asus. It's got a 6+2 power array. It's got all the bells and whistles you could want. It's got the EPU, the TPU processors, which will either help it be a little bit more efficient in terms of energy consumption, or it will give you that little extra edge to overclock your product a little bit higher than other boards. One of the hallmarks of Asus has been their excellent BIOS implementations of the UEFI standard. Getting in there, it is easy to manipulate all of the different properties of the motherboard. They've got an advanced and a basic menu. Everything works really, really nice. The design of all 3 of the products is really outstanding. They've integrated a huge number of features in each one. The 970 based one is $119. The 990X, which is the first SLI and Crossfire enabled product, it's $149, and then the Crossfire 5, which is their Republic Gamer high-end, absolute highest-end AMD board that they have. It retails for $239. Now, the performance on all of these products is essentially identical. All of them overclock to 325 megahertz plus in the hypertransport speed category. In terms of memory performance, all of them were right in the same area. Gaming performance, again, it's all neck and neck. Now, part of this is, well, a large portion of this is because all of their products are based, well, AMD has been integrated all the Northbridge features into their CPUs. And so a lot of the performance features that we had seen in previous products, I mean, think about, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when we had 3 or 4 chipset manufacturers, and you had to deal with things like, memory controllers on the different chipsets from VIA, from Intel, SIS, and AMD, or rather ATI at that time. There were some pretty big variations in terms of performance. And once Intel and AMD have migrated those features onto their CPUs, we haven't had to worry about them nearly as much. Now, unless one of these manufacturers has really screwed up the BIOS implementations, we're going to see very, very similar performance in each of the motherboards. Now, what Asus has done is have been able to compartmentalize the different market spaces. The 970, it's going to have a single PEG slot. You can use the secondary PEG slot on there for Crossfire, but that secondary slot is a PCIe by 4 electrical connection. And so you're going to have some performance issues there. If you really want to go multi-GPU, then you want to upgrade to the 990X. Now, furthermore, if you really want all of the features that the Crosshair 5 has, like the Supreme FX2 sound system, the Intel integrated Gigi networking controller, six USB 3.0 ports, I mean, then you're going to want to go up to the higher end part. And so they've done a good job in marketing these different areas with the products that they have, and all of them perform really, really well. Probably the Crossfire 5 was slightly better at overclocking. It's got a little bit more robust power delivery circuitry, and it's got a design that can handle triple SLI, triple Crossfire, or being able to use two multi-GPU video cards, such as the GTX 590 or the HD 6990. Each of those products have two GPUs, and you put two of them together, and you've got quad SLI or quad Crossfire. And so, if you're really looking at a high-end product, then the Crossfire 5, it's really an outstanding board. It was just so easy to work with. It's got an outstanding BIOS implementation. Performance was right up there with its competitors. It just was really good. In fact, the entire slew of Asus motherboards that I was able to test, they really outperformed my expectations. Again, the only problem that we have is that AMD has released a product in their Bulldozer products, CPUs, that just cannot stand up against the Intel i5 and i7 products. So if you have a little faith in AMD and think that the next revision of Bulldozer or the later edition PileDriver based one is going to do what they're hoping it'll do, then these are all three very, very good foundations for an AMD product. Now, the one positive thing for AMD is that their current Phenom 2 X6 processors are very low in price. You can get 1100T for about $179. Oftentimes they're on sale. You can get them for $169 or $159, and that's still a very, very good processor for the price. And in many ways, it performs right next to or outperforms the FX 8150 Bulldozer. So if you were going to build a new machine and you really wanted to stick with AMD, then probably the X6 and one of these boards is one of your best bets for how you want to do. I don't know if any of you other guys had read anything about these, but any of your thoughts on the products?
Very disappointed that there's no guns bolted to the board as a heat sink or anything. It just sort of disappoints me.
Yeah, I know that's Gigabyte and now MSI.
Yeah. Yes, they're both doing it.
G1
no, these both look, all three of them look like great motherboards. I just wish we had a better processor to stick in them.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. The i5 2500K just looks to be, the bargain processor to get if you were an enthusiast. Yeah. I mean, if you want to spend a little bit more extra money for the i7 2600K, that's great. If you wanted to spend even more money for the i7 2700K, then more power to you. But still, that's an area where Intel is
just that 2500 is just in a sweet spot.
Yeah,
just can't really go wrong with it.
Now, if you remembered last week, Brian talked about two notebooks from Alienware. Jeremy, would you care to take this over? What happened? Did Ryan make a difference in the world?
I think that Ryan is, at least in this case, a force for good. In that one of the biggest complaints we had about this was you're looking at two almost exactly similar performances from two different notebooks. One's an AMD solution, one's an NVIDIA solution. There was a $300 price difference. That made it really hard to argue that, okay, NVIDIA has slightly better mobile graphics driver support than AMD does, but at the same time, you're talking a frame or two frames. Do you really want to spend $300 for that last frame per second? Well, Alienware sort of answered perhaps Ryan's complaint, perhaps other complaints, but they dropped the price by $225. So it is now a $75 price differential on the GTX 580M powered Alienware, which really makes a big difference. Suddenly, you're not looking at a huge investment. You're just looking at tossing a few extra bucks towards it. And, $75 for the bragging rights seems somehow much more reasonable than $300 for the bragging rights.
So do we know that it came directly from Ryan's last piece on it?
We're pretending.
Oh. Okay.
We like to pretend that we actually are force for good in cyberspace.
Well, no, I think because I didn't see many other pieces doing that kind of comparison. So I think we're really the only ones to point that out. And good on them if they were able to go, hey, maybe that is too much of a steep difference and sort of fix things.
Well, if that was the case, then the Ryan's word had to go way up the line. Namely, NVIDIA needed to look at their product and their mobile product and say, hey, we're overpriced compared to the competition. Let's talk to our partners and kind of cut these prices down. So who knows? Maybe Ryan has that much pull. Doesn't have that much pull with me. I mean, look at my life. But anyway, I guess we should head on to our last major topic, and that would be hardware and software picks of the week. Now, Ryan, what did you pick for your hardware software pick of the week?
Well, guys, I'm not here right now, but if you leave your name and number.
Yeah.
Ryan, he dropped the ball. So, since Jeremy, you're the second oldest member of PC Perspective that still talks to other people, why don't you go ahead with your pick?
Well, back in my day, it took a long time to get the snow off the top of the barbecue. So I'd been browsing around. I've been way too busy this week and did not have enough time to actually properly research a pick. But when I did find a little pistol flamethrower with instructables on how exactly to make it from scratch, if you want it really pretty, you do need a CNC machine or a lot of time. But hey, and Burke, the video is like 14 seconds if you want to toss it up. This can't be dangerous at all. There's no possible reason you would not want to have one of these.
Did that weapon come from BioShock? I'm serious.
It does kind of look like that little hacker thingy, doesn't it? But on the other hand, could the hacker thingy take the snow off barbecue like that?
You're an evil man.
Feeling chilly, Josh?
You don't even have a balcony and a barbecue, do you?
What?
Jeremy?
There's no snow on my barbecue.
It also works when the starter busts on the barbecue. It'll help you start it up.
And that will start a barbecue. It'll only leave a slight nasty taste on your food as well.
Slight.
Well, you got to let it warm up for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It'll get rid of the extra propane.
For my pick of the week, there was a deal the other day from Amazon for some of the best video game music around. They had it for $2.99. It was for one day only. I bought it. I enjoyed it. It's now for a slightly larger price of $5.99. But after listening to it, I still think it's worth it. If you're a connoisseur of music, this is some of the best pieces from around. So,
it's got the Tetris theme on it.
Oh, hold on. The kick here is that it's performed by the London Philharmonic.
Yes.
Right? So you're listening
fully
to...
orchestrated.
Yeah. That's pretty sweet. Especially since they have like Battlefield 2 theme in there.
Yeah, and that's actually really well done. So
there's some good stuff in there.
It's good for $5.99.
And they even have the Angry Birds theme by the London Philharmonic.
Much, but maybe I need to play the game more, if there is such a thing as being able to play the game more. Allyn.
I'm worried about what attracted Burke's attention.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not quite
along the
sure what
lines
that
of
is.
along the lines of MP3s, if you happen to have a bunch of MP3s flying around and you want to try to clean them up a bit, maybe get your tags all straightened out, there's just a simple free program that I found myself using a lot lately. Just MP3 tag. Um, I think they are at where are they at? It's mp3tag.de. It's simple, free MP3 tag editor. It builds in the little Explorer, Windows Explorer context menu thing. You can just right click on a folder and launch MP3 tag. What I really like about it is if you have like a multi-disc collection or something and it's subcategorized, like you have different folders within the main folder of it, you just right click on the main folder and it just automatically spans all that and pulls them all up in the same list. So if you want to like make it, okay, now I need to fix all these so it's the same artist or whatnot, you could just select multiple directories worth of them all at the same time and just apply it to all of them at the same time. Makes it real easy to make sure everything's got the same, is named correctly across the entire album or multiple discs or whatnot. And I think it has some CD database and other stuff in there as well. So if you ripped CDs and you just have like track 1, track 2, track 3 or whatnot, and you're trying to fix that, it can go in there and try and guesstimate as to what the CD actually was and just say, okay, I think it looks like this one. You just hit okay, and it just renames it for you. It's like magic.
Magic.
Make your mundane tasks easier.
You didn't
Basically.
have to meet at the top of the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day to say it's magic, did you?
No, I did not.
No, that's good. Sorry. Anyway, well, that's it. That's our show. You can get a hold of us at 188-38-PC-PER on the old thing called the telephone. Leave Ryan a very nice message because he likes nice messages. I'm sure he would like to hear more about the lovely SEC football conference play that Kentucky is doing this year. Send him your comments. Even if you have something trivial to talk about, like why your processor isn't working, send him your comments. Talk to him. He likes to hear your voice. Otherwise, you can listen to this podcast at pcper.com/podcast. We have it in multiple forms, including, if we're lucky, video the day after. If you want to follow Ryan or pcper, you can do twitter.com/Ryan Shrout, all one word, or twitter.com/pcper. And unfortunately, there were no email messages that we were forwarded, so there is no comedy to be coming from there. And with that, I'm Josh Walworth.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
And I'm Al Malventano.
And next week, we should have a full cast of people, including Ryan Shrout, unless Sandy Bridge and his 64 gigs of memory eat him alive.
Which
But stay
probably won't.
tuned till then. Good night.